waste any time on this subject. This subject is near and dear to my heart, not because I grew up with it. I did not grow up with any kind of church calendar or liturgical understanding. I went out looking for it in my 20s. When I first left college, got my ordination, started pastoring. I like to say I was a puppy pastor for a very long time. Now I'm just an old dog. And as this old dog grew into what I loved about celebrating Jesus, I understood that as a Pentecostal boy, that's me. I'm Pentecostal boy. That's how I came to faith. I realized I was missing a trainload of beauty that was in the church of and the body of Christ in things just like the church calendar, for instance. So Advent is a part of the church calendar. All right. So stop me if I'm going too fast because I'm juiced. I've got I've got so much of this pumping in my heart. But in the church calendar since 400 AD. So that's a long time ago. People in the small little coveys that they were meeting and worshiping in had a sense that we need to focus at least a month, if not 2 months, on the birth of Christ. How did this arrival come? Now, I know now in the 21st century, 20th century, 21st century, we got ourselves obsessed with the second coming of Christ. And I do mean obsessed. The second coming of Christ has become this unhealthy view that has distracted us from the first coming. I don't talk to me about second coming. Talk to me about the first coming, because here's the first coming. In the first coming, there was the nativity. What is that? The birth. In the first coming, there was the passion. What is the passion? This is Jesus suffering, bleeding, and dying. In the first coming, there's the resurrection. And in the resurrection, what happened there was Jesus grabbed all of humanity and lifted them up out of the grave. Anybody out there been lifted out of the grave? I'm going to see a hand. I don't know if I have anybody listed. All right, good. I see it. So in the first coming, we got the birth, we got the passion, we got the resurrection, and we got the ascension. He has ascended to the right hand of the Father. In power, he is ascended to the right hand of the Father. Now listen, in the second coming obsession, we're waiting for Jesus to come. And that has been a significant mistake. He came, he lived, he died, he was resurrected, and he has ascended to on high. And now he invites me and you to be wrapped up in the Advent. The word Advent means the arrival. At the arrival, everything changed. So if you're talking to Bishop Randy Dean and you're asking me about when Jesus comes again, everything's going to change, I will respond by saying, he came, everything changed. Now let's dive into the deep pool of the Advent, the arrival. Here it is. So it's 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas. All right. So for every kid out there that wanted more days of Christmas than just one, I got good news for you. There are 4 Sundays in Advent leading up to Christmas. Christmas starts December 25th. We all know that. But we don't always regard and remember that there's 12 days of Christmas. And then the 12 days of Christmas, other than the song, we're talking about the events of after his birth. And then on January 6th, it's the Epiphany. That's when these freaky dudes we call the Magi showed up in an entourage. We always see them as these shadowy figures with these fancy outfits on, and they're riding camels, right? Listen, when you're hauling gold, frankincense, and myrrh, you just don't launch out there with freaky costumes. What you do is you get yourself a small army to protect the goods. So the Magi on January 6th, these are all Gentiles. In fact, these freaky magicians, science experts followed a star because astronomy was huge in their mind. They found in that star direction to find Bethlehem. And when they arrived, they brought him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Let me tell you something. In that gift, the revelation of Isaiah 1,000 years prior was fulfilled, that the kings of the earth will come and bring their wealth. That's happened. See, I'm not waiting for the second coming. I'm dancing around in my office for the first coming, the arrival. Now, so to that end, with the arrival, so you start with 4 Sundays of Advent, then you go to Christmas, 12 days of Christmas, and then you finish that up with celebrating the whole world gets to break in on the beauty of Christ through the Magi. Now, let me dial this all back. In those 4 Sundays, let's talk about John the Baptist. Talk about a freaky dude. this guy was not impressed with people in power. In fact, he got himself in trouble and got put in jail because he spoke to power with a prophetic voice. Now, that's John the Baptist. And I don't have time to talk about Mama Elizabeth and Daddy Zacharias and all of that beauty, but that's significant. Now let's talk about Daddy Joseph, Jesus' earthly father, Joseph. That's second Sunday. Now, a lot of folks do it in different order. They talk about different events of his arrival. But for Randy, it's about, first of all, John the Baptist, first Sunday. Second Sunday, let's talk about Joseph. We don't talk about Daddy Joseph much, but I think we're looking at this magnificent, majestic man who had enough manliness about him to shut up and hold off in the back. A man, a patriarch who didn't lord his patriarchy over people. He knew Mary's story. He knew his lady had this majestic visit from an angel. He didn't get that majestic visit from Gabriel, but Joseph. I've heard people try to explain why Joseph was kind of quiet in the background. I don't need the explanation. All I see about Joseph, I can read in Scripture. He was a holy, humble, powerful man, powerful enough to know how to shut up and enjoy the ride. Do you understand that? Powerful enough not to push Mary around, powerful enough not to make his will known, but he was powerful enough to let Mary take front and center. Oh, oh. Now I got to move on. Third Sunday, let's talk about Mary, shall we? Luke chapter 1, the Magnificat. This is Mary's story. Now, nearly every church calendar uses that third Sunday to celebrate Mary. Mary is a queen. I know that's ruffles some anti-Catholic thinking, but I'm going to tell you something. This queen knew, as a little peasant girl, an impoverished child, she was carrying God. God skipped over the normal biological means and gave her this immaculate conception. Mary, man, drop a quarter in this vending machine and I will preach on Mary. This lady had the significant revelation that said this in Luke chapter 1. You got to read that. I'm going to read just a portion. It says, she said, "For behold, from this time on, all generations will call me blessed. For the mighty one has done great things for me. He has done mighty deeds with his arms. He scattered those who were proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones and exalted those who were humble." Who was she talking about? She was talking about her and Joseph. He's exalted the humble. So I want to encourage you now. Let's get involved with the first coming, the first arrival, with people like Joseph and Mary. Let's be like them. Let's be that a recognition that I have been given a treasure on the inside of me. See, I'm not looking up in the sky waiting for a second coming. I got a first coming to celebrate. I got a first coming to write about. I got a first coming to live about, to enjoy, to get out in my life and just lift the beauty of this first coming, and to let people know that I'm not waiting for some kind of transformation when Jesus appears in the skies. I have had a transformation because Jesus has appeared in me. Christ in me is the hope of glory. And when he appears a second time, I'll be like him. But in the meantime, as he appears a second time and I'll be like him, in the meantime, I've been living a whole life of a rehearsal to be just like him, to be and live just like him, speak just like him, heal just like him, be prophetic just like him. And I want to be prophetic a moment here and tell some of the ladies in the congregation out there. I almost said pews. I don't see any pews. You better have maybe a circle or a square here with a pew so I can feel like we're at church. But anyway, I want to speak to you ladies, and I want to prophetically declare to you that in your humility, there is an exalting word coming up in you. As Mary carried an exalted word with a capital W, Jesus is the word. As she carried the word in her, ladies, I hear God saying there's a word coming to you that will ignite you like nothing else has ever ignited you. That there will be a fire born in your spiritual womb, and that you will say, the Lord has done great things for me. Even if you look around in a small apartment or humble abode, I want you to understand that you have been given a great word in you. Don't be afraid. Don't let any abusive man tell you you can't speak up and clear your throat. Ladies, clear your throat. Give the word. Let that word be strong, but let it be born in the significant humility as Mary carried the word. I feel like there's a time for us as the church to get prophetic about little people, about people in little places, people in ignored office cubicles, people who've been overlooked for promotions. The Advent is about you. The arrival of Christ in a no-count Bethlehem town. The biggest thing Bethlehem was known for is they had good donuts and bread. It was the city of bread. It was a city of bakeries. So, so to that end, Bethlehem was nothing. Hey, I'm speaking to you from Forest, Wisconsin. Last time I looked, I think we had 300 people in town. We got one bar and one feed mill that just burned down. That's all we got here. But I'll tell you something else Forest has got. This boy right here. And I live my life with the joy of a little place, a small town, a little nook in the middle of Western Wisconsin that I can speak to the world and say, it's not the high and mighty, it's in the low and humble. So again, ladies, please soak that into your soul. Give yourself permission to carry a word. All right. And last but not least, the fourth Sunday. This is how I celebrate it. On the fourth Sunday, let's talk about shepherds keeping watch over their flocks by night. This is where God goes into entrepreneurial mode. God in his universe-sized mind says, how can I best put this word in a context? Please hear me when I say that. In a context that will show forth the glory of my majesty in my son. What context can we announce this in its best form? I know. Let's go to these dudes in a graveyard shift. Graveyard shift shepherds watching their flock by night. This is not the highest paying vocation in town. This is not the highest level of esteem that you can gain. I've done a tiny bit. Back in high school, I worked at a farm where they had sheep. Pigs smell good by comparison to sheep. I lived it. I remember cleaning out a sheep pen one day, and walked into the home of the farmer I was working for. And his wife met me at the door and said, "You take those clothes off outside," because I had been all day long amongst the sheep. Now, listen to me. When angels came, a choir formed in the heavens, and shepherds watching their flock by night heard this choir shout, "Glory to God in the highest, and on earth, peace, goodwill toward men." You want to know why I'm not waiting for the second coming to celebrate? Because I've got the first coming. In that first coming, graveyard shift, nighttime workers were paid attention to from the courts of heaven. Now, let me speak prophetically to some of you in jobs that you feel so ill-fitting. Your job feels like a shoe that's one size too small. Your job feels like a third glove. Like, what am I doing in this job? Let me speak to you and say, be still and know that he is God in the middle of that job, in the middle of that nighttime shift, in the middle of a thing that you think, I got to run away from it. I want to encourage you, take a pause. Advent says, slow it down. Slow down your rush. Slow down your feeling that I got to get a promotion. I got to get out of this place. Advent says, in all the Christmassy and all the shopping and all the parties you go to, dial down. Every one of you in a place where you go to work and you feel the stress of going to that job. I want you to think about shepherds in the middle of the night. You are mighty. You are as lowly as you feel, and wherever you are a mighty soul. And an angel choir wants to sing to you and bring you down off the ceiling and give you peace. We are in too much of a rush in the holidays. The word holiday means holy days. Holy days is a time for us to take a beat. Stop fighting for the promotion. Stop fighting for recognition. Stop fighting for somebody to see you. Stop trying to impress somebody and pull it all the way down to the place of quietness, of soul and mind. Prophetically, I'm convinced that what we have done to ourselves in Western, in the idea of Western advancement, is we've taken holidays and we've ramped it up into something God has never been in the middle of. He wants us to settle and enjoy. I wrote a note to myself when I talked to you today about these 4 Sundays. I want to invite you to spend this next month in the beauty of imagining. I could be like John the Baptist, whoever I am to whatever I'm speaking to. I could be like Joseph, the earthly father of Jesus. I want you to ponder, meditate, contemplate. You could be just like Joseph. I want you to ponder, contemplate. You may just be like Mary, carrying a word inside of you. And by the way, carrying a word, uh, Mary was probably no older than 16 when this happened. Huh? Doesn't God know that's going to look bad? I think God said, "Oh, I know that looks bad." Because God, in his message to Mary, now this is again a prophetic something to everybody. In his message through Mary was, I'm not standing away from the mess, I'm entering the mess. I'm going to center my beauty and my goodness in a mess. My best is showing up in a mess. And I'm going to you've heard this, I'm going to turn your mess into a message. Anybody game for that? Does anybody have a mess? Let me ask you, would you like to see your mess become a message, just like Mary? And maybe, just maybe, you are just like shepherds watching their flock by night. I'm going to wrap this up by telling you this. Hear me carefully. I sounded like Archbishop Kirby right there. Hear me carefully now. I can't say it like him. All right. We are far too impatient. We rush through life and we rush through the holidays at the expense of prayer and meditation. We rush to get past certain uh, thresholds rather than entering into that threshold and being settled. This is the beginning of Advent. This is the original resistance to all the high and mighty powers. But what does God do to resist high and mighty powers? He enters the humble. He enters the quiet. He enters the settled heart. He enters those who feel like they've been overlooked. And he says, I pick you. I'm choosing you. It's designed, Advent is designed to introduce us to the beauty of humility and smallness. Advent is designed, and by the way, can you imagine those three mighty kings on those three magi coming to a barn to celebrate, bringing the Brinks truck of all the gold, frankincense, and myrrh up to a barn? Yes, that's the message of Advent. Want to get in the spirit of Christmas? Let's practice the patient wait, the patient wait of Advent. Now, let me wrap it up by asking you to do this with me. For all those listening to me now, have you been waiting? I mean, like waiting to the point of feeling like you're going to lose your mind. God says to you, my child, I have watched every minute of your wait. I watched every split second of your sitting in that chair, wringing your hands. I have seen your wait. I consider your wait as precious treasure. The wait that Advent invites us to embrace is a lifestyle to embrace the waiting. Israel was waiting for a while for their Messiah. Isaiah 53 and chapter 60 talks about the first coming. Do you know how long Isaiah was speaking before the actual appearance of anything that looked like Jesus? 600 years. And some prophets like Isaiah called Israel to treasure the waiting, treasure that impatient sense of how long, O Lord, and translate it into to contemplate, to wait on the Lord and renew your strength. Isaiah's wait was 600 years, but I'm convinced when Isaiah saw the first coming, Isaiah said, it was worth the wait. It was worth the patience. I feel like I'm rising up on wings as an eagle. 600 years. Your wait may not be that long. In fact, I'm sure of it because I know in my life, I've had a few things I've waited on that feel like 6,000 years. But I have turned my wait into a gift to God to recognize that that's where my humility is truly put before him in a patient sense that nothing's wasted with God. Nothing's wasted with God for you, Pastor Sunday. Nothing is wasted from God. Every moment you've waited. Uh, my friend Gloria. Oh gosh, I see your face. All that waiting is for something. All that waiting, Harold, is for something. All that waiting, Willie. Are you still with me, Willie? Did Willie go away? All that waiting is for something. Brad, all that waiting, it's for something. Let's turn Advent into a place of peaceful waiting, knowing that in the wait, there is gold and frankincense and myrrh being transported our way. It's coming. It's coming. And you may feel like you're waiting in a barn, hold your nose a little while longer because the wait will pay off, Myers. The wait will pay off, Patricia. The wait will pay off. I believe it. I'm a living example of the wait. So may we know that this Advent is an invitation. Slow it down, embrace the quiet, know God's purpose in your patience. I love you all. God bless you.